Fuzzy up to today? Getting tired of hearing that yet? I know, I'm sure tired of saying it. Well, one of the things that I've been doing here in the shop is rebuilding the shop. It's been 5 years. I've been doing a lot of painting. I've been doing a bunch of other projects. I've shown some of those projects. And over the last 10 years I've been here, I have pretty much covered every single square inch of wall space in this shop with cabinets. I got away from shelving for the most part. I don't like open shelving. It collects dust and dirt and shit and just kind of looks sloppy. Which is ironic since I'm a pig. But one of the easiest ways to clean your shop up is to pick everything up that's laying all over the place and making it look like a pigsty, is to put shit in cabinets. That's what cabinets are for, right, kids? So, I actually already started this project, and then I'm like, hey, you know what? I might want to do a video on it. So here we are. This is the last spot in my shop that doesn't have shit on it. It does. I mean, I got my fire extinguisher, the only unitasker in the building, my surround sound speaker, because I got a kicking ass stereo in here, and some pipes and hoses and things. So I never really wanted to attach anything to this wall. I actually had my circa 1987 Snap-on clock hanging here. I've moved it. It's still part of the shop, but it's just moved to a different spot because that is a prized possession of mine. I didn't buy all these Snap-on toolboxes to store tools in. I bought them to get titty calendars and clocks. So I already prepared the area here. Now what I did was I took 1x3 that I had lying around. I drilled it. These walls are 12-inch thick cinder block, real cinder block. It's black cinder block. It's 100 plus years old. And I did something I don't like to do. I did it anyway. I'm really curious to see how it holds up. It's held up. This particular system that I used to hang these has held up. I could have put lead heads in here. I didn't have enough lead heads. So I used Tapcons. I'm not a huge fan of Tapcons, but I used them anyway. This is not going to hold a cabinet. It's going to hold a modified pegboard. I know I said I don't like cabinet, or I don't like shelves, and I don't like stuff out in the open if I can avoid it. But occasionally you want to have stuff instantaneously accessible and easy to get to that it doesn't really suit being put in a cabinet or a drawer. And in my particular case, it's going to be vacuum attachments, which I am constantly looking for, constantly tripping over, and some of the push sticks and things that I have. So you can't, I don't know if it's not on camera here because I'm standing in the way, or I moved it out of the way. So my planer generally sits here and my joiner is over to my right. So this is a push stick for my joiner. I printed this. You saw the other push sticks I printed. I've got a ton of push sticks. I don't really use them as much as I should because they're usually hidden away in a drawer. Well, I want to hang those on the wall, so if I want to grab them, I can just walk over here, grab them, walk right over to the table saw or over to the joiner, and use my push sticks because Uncle Fezzi likes his fingers. So I took the 1x3s and I mounted them to the wall using Tapcons and adhesive. The industrial adhesive I used was PX3 or P3X. P3X. I've had relatively decent success with that stuff when gluing wood to concrete. The wall was painted. There's definitely not what I would consider a good mechanical adhesion when you paint them. So there is a barrier in between the raw concrete, the mud on the wall, and the wood. I didn't paint the wood, but I did paint the wall. The wall is super duper rough, so it should give a little bit of tooth to the for the PX3 to stick to. And not for nothing, the Tapcons are in the wall, and they did tighten up, except this bumper here spun out on me. I hate Tapcons. like I said, I could have used inserts. I could have used a lot of different things to do it. I used Tapcons. I also glued the Tapcons in. So I squirted glue in the holes, put glue on the Tapcon threads, and ran them into the holes in the wall. I use this technique to attach many of the cabinets in this shop. I used the French cleat, but I also used, to attach the cleat to the wall, I used Tapcons and adhesive. I load these cabinets up pretty heavy. They've been up for 3 years now. Some of them have been up longer than 3 years, but they haven't fallen off the wall yet, so we'll see. You know, maybe I'll come in one day and they'll be on the floor. All right, so this has already been attached to the wall. It gives a standoff for all these the electrical conduits. So my game plan is I went over to Home Depot and I purchased a piece of 3/4 inch birch plywood. That actually wasn't birch. Birch was $50 for a quarter of a sheet. I bought the next grade down, which is still cabinet grade plywood. The space here is 24 inches from here and over here. So I'm actually going to rip the piece of plywood to 23 inches. I still want to be able to access this joint if I need to. That and this line is actually, it pokes out a little bit too much. I'd have to create too much of a standoff, which would then make it even more difficult to get to these electrical outlets. The game plan is to run the piece of plywood right along here, from here to here, and then up to the ceiling. I'm going to save everybody that. But notice the change of angle. My camera shit the fucking bed while I was still giving my lecture. So, I'll pick up where I left off. So, cutting a piece of plywood and screwing it to the wall, or into these pieces of wood, is not the actual interesting part of the project here. The interesting part of the project is how I plan to do it. So let's go take a look at what I have come up with. So basically all this shit that you see in front of me here was supposed to be, or this was supposed to be B-roll, but the vast majority of this stuff I want to hang on the wall. And what am I doing here with my Gandalf staff? Well, I gave it a long, hard thought, and there's a couple different options I had for mounting this stuff on the wall and making my pegboard. Now remember, it's not really a pegboard. One was to buy commercially available slat board. Call it slat board. It's pegboard, but it's not pegboard. It's got slats and you hang stuff off of it. They didn't have what I wanted. They had it at Depot, but they didn't have exactly what I wanted. I'm Veruca Salt. I want to get this job done because I want that corner of my shop cleaned up because I'm still cleaning my shop up. So I went and had a couple different iterations of this idea because I now have a 3D printer. Everything has a 3D printer solution. I have this plastic material. I forget what it is. I forget what it is. It's some kind of hard plastic tubing, or not tubing, pipe or rod that I bought at Fazio's to use as bench dogs. It never really worked out as bench dogs. As a matter of fact, I closed up the holes. And my game plan was originally to print out a whole bunch of these. This is just a test for the angle that I needed. So you can see here they have different angles of attack. So that's, I think that's like 20 degrees. Oops, wrong way. This one's 30 degrees. So I decided I was going to use this angle of attack, or this angle, to make it easier to hang shit off of, right? But after a little while, I really don't have enough of this material to do it right. So while I'm in the aisle looking for the slat board material, because you know everything at Home Depot, if you want one thing at one end of the ship store, you have to walk to the other end of the store to get it. So I thought about dowels. I have dowels floating around here. I'll actually show my other dowel project, which I'm really proud of, but I'm saving that. So I remembered that they sell these. This is a closet pole. I didn't check the diameter of it. I sure as hell hope I have a drill bit. I actually just ordered a drill bit. Let's see here. Off. Oh, millimeters. Tool of the devil. So this is 1.297. So that's like an inch, a little bit over an inch and a quarter. Of course, it's not round, which I actually do have that size drill bit for, forstner bit. So what am I going to do? Well, I also have this 2x3 here, which I'm going to set up on my drill press and drill it at an angle, and hopefully I get it to work. I have a radial drill press. I did another video on the radial arm drill press. I've never actually used it for what it's intended for, which is to be able to drill things at weird angles and weird lengths. So that's what that's actually the project, is to set up the drill press to drill this material at this angle. At this angle. I don't want to drill the plywood itself because I don't want to mess up the entire sheet of plywood. There's no need to mess up the entire sheet of plywood when I can just drill this 2x and attach it in two places on the plywood, and then there's only two holes. So if I decide I don't like this, which is a very good possibility, or I want to move it around, I haven't made 15 holes in a piece of plywood. I've only made 15 holes in a couple of these. So I'm going to go spend the next 45 minutes trying to figure out how to set up my drill press to drill angled holes. I have the most peculiar, well, let me rephrase this. I'm going to have to build a jig for this, and I just haven't quite figured out how I'm going to build that jig just yet, because there's angles, and the only thing that's a bigger tool of the devil than the metric system is geometry. So let's, we're going to go do that. Okay, so here we are about, I'm going to say about an hour later, if you don't count lunch. So it took me about an hour to figure this out. I didn't build a real jig, but I do have a jig. So on this drill press, there's a nut on this side of the drill press over here. There's a nut on this side of the drill press too, but there's one on the side of the machine that you loosen up and you can pivot the head. Now I have this digital protractor here that tells me the angles. Now it's 28, but the truth of the matter is this thing wiggles, the whole thing wiggles so much that this is actually way too sensitive. Now there's also a gauge on the side of the drill press head that allows you to change that. You can do, if you don't have a drill press that has a moving head like this one, you can do it with the table also. I've seen some crazy setups done on drill press tables that were like, holy shit, I can't believe you were able to pull that off. So I marked these for, this is the 1x3, and I marked them all out, and let's drill some holes here. This is a little sketchy. I'm not super duper fond of this, but it works. The other thing that works is my 3D printed vacuum attachment for my drill press. Whoop, away it goes. So I'm clamping this down and lining these up. If I had to drill, many more of these, like if I had to do like 10, I probably would have built a better jig, but in this particular case, we don't need a whole much better jig. It gets about 50% of the back of the shavings, and the rest I can just kind of push in there. I'm not drilling all the way through. I want the base, I want the bottom of the hole to actually be flat.
I get pretty decent suction out of the that thing. So one of the other projects I've been working on here is this. This is cool. I printed this out of TPU. The other one, the old one, stopped right about there. This one comes down and drags on the thing a little bit. It's not perfect. Eventually, there's a company that makes an STL file that you can download that makes like a guard that goes on this. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I want to pay the guy for it. I don't want to steal it, so I just haven't gotten to it. So this saw, I've been using this vacuum. There's a vacuum under the table here. I hate that thing. It's ungodly loud. So one of the things I quickly figured out is that these things aren't round. They're not even remotely round. They're kind of round, but they're really not round. So what I have to do is I got to sand them. So I can go over to my my belt sander there and sand them a little bit. So what's cool here, and this is one of the things that I worked on, is that's my magnetic dust collector, right? Wink. Now this is my old Chitty Chitty Bang Bang sander, which is working great for this because I can go here where it's soft, put a little chamfer on the end, and I can, well, little chamfer on the end. So the sander, the vacuum, the attachment gets us about, I don't know, maybe 50% of the sanding dust, but 50% is better than no percent, right? That's close, but not close enough. That's close enough. So one of the weird side effects of this, it's not weird, it happens, is everything gets really heavily static charged because multiple reasons. One is this isn't actually grounded to the bench. It is grounded through the outlet, but it's not grounded through the bench. Now we'll clean the rest of that dust up later. So here we are. I'm gonna not put these in just yet. I'm actually gonna paint this before I put it up because I want to leave these bare wood because they're oak, right? And it matches. This is the other project that I did. It matches this. So I made this the other day. This mount, I used the nut certs into the side of my toolbox and mounted this piece of old white oak that I had laying around. And then this is actually white oak also, and these come off and I can unbolt this, but these cover the holes. I didn't plug the holes, but that's okay. And then I made these out of a different piece of dowel that I had, which is also oak. And these are black walnut because I had them laying around. Now, what's next? Well, I have this hunk left over here, and I'm going to take. And because everything now has a 3D printing solution, every problem has a 3D printing solution, I'm actually going to build I'm going to build stanchions for this. So it's going to hang here. I think I'm going to have it so it hangs here. And we'll see, or maybe higher, I don't know yet. So in the spirit of my new adventure into tinkering, or making or building, or I don't know, whatever trendy term you want to use to describe my existence, I'm going to quote, I can't remember the guy's name, but basically the joke is now every solution has a 3D printing, or every problem now has a 3D printing solution. So I went into Tinkercad and I did a real quick SketchUp design of holders for this bar. my glorified towel rack. So they're in the printer here. The complete and total and utter hilarity and irony of this is, it took me about, I'm gonna go and say on the outside, 15 minutes in Tinkercad to come up with this design. And it took 9 hours to print. Now, if I was making these from existing products that I have, or existing materials that I have right here in this shop right now, I could have put this project together in about an hour. 9 hours later, let's see what's in the printer. I haven't taken these out yet. 9 hours is right on the very far edge of the amount of time that I like to run this printer. One of my other friends did a 38-hour multicolor print the other day, and you know, it came out, which is 38 hours is insane to me. But you know, it's not uncommon for that's how long 3D prints take. My other complaint, and this isn't really a complaint, this is something that I would probably just have to look into, is that you can't swap this door around. I would prefer that this door opened in this direction, but it opens this way. So let's grab the build plate here. Oh no, there's nothing on the build plate. That's because these are my parts. Let's scrape this and put it back in the machine, because we're going to use this. We're going to set up another print immediately, because I got plans. This is another thing. I'll close this. I have been seeing and reading and everything. You know, let's face it, I don't take a shit without researching it. And one of the things that I keep looking up and keep seeing is how you have to keep your build plate clean. But on the flip side of that is they tell you that you have to put glue stick on your build plate. And then there's a new build plate out from Bambu Labs, which I haven't got yet, because I hate paying for shipping. So if I'm going to order something from Bambu Labs, I got to spend at least $75 to justify the shipping, or free, quote unquote, free shipping. So, and not for nothing, I'm about $500 to $600 into Bambu Lab this month. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break. Tangent, right? So I'm a huge, monstrous fan of Windex. You know, if you ever watched My Big Greek Wedding, and I'm not going to soak my elbow in Windex, but I want to tell you right now, it's some pretty cool stuff. Glue stick, good old-fashioned Elmer's glue stick, is, for all intents and purposes, water, alcohol, soluble. Windex is nothing more than water and alcohol with a little bit of food coloring in it, and maybe a drop or two of surfactant. So what I've been doing with relatively great success, and I've had a few things flop off the build plate, is put a couple spurts of Windex on the build plate, give it a little bit of and everybody's got their own juice, so this is just what I've been doing, to reactivate the glue stick on the build plate, toss it back in. I've had a couple things pop off, but the things that have popped off have all been stuff that I didn't properly prepare the build plate for, or the print. So what have I got here, other than two things that I could have absolutely positively made in with wood? So here we go. These are now the holders for this rod. I sure as fuck hope this thing fits. Aha, perfect fit. I absolutely could have made these out of wood, and I could have done it in 15 minutes. What I did make them out of instead was PETG carbon fiber. It's the same material that I used to make the standoffs or stanchions or blocks or whatever for my chair. I used a different type of infill pattern, and I infilled them at 50%. These things are shockingly heavy. These are almost solid plastic, for the sake of argument. So I'm going to go over to the board, and I'm going to mount them. And I'm going to use these screws here to mount them. I printed these with no support, and I fully expected this to happen. The holes, these holes right here, are not round, and I knew they were not going to be round because I printed them without support. If I printed these with support, these holes would be round, and they are clearly not round. So I think before I go any further with this, I'm going to take a drill bit and I'm going to run through these. When I set the print up, when I sliced this, I sliced it knowing that I was going to have to do that. I put, there's a, you can go into the slicer and you can choose the wall thickness for every one of your holes, and I chose like 10 millimeter wall thickness. So the wall thickness on these is well within, for the sake of argument, we'll call it reaming stage. Reaming. And who hasn't had a good reaming over the years, kids? So I'm going to ream these holes out, and we're going to mount this on the board. I should also mention that I printed these this way. If you're not familiar with how a 3D printer works, which I kind of was, but I'm not an expert on 3D printing. We need to clarify that at all times. I printed these this, but I am for all intents and purposes an expert in tinkering and building things. So just like wood, I printed these this way on the build plate. I printed them horizontally on the build plate. Now the sacrifice for that was that these holes are not round, but this one, which is the important hole, is round. Also, we're going to use a wood analogy here. The grain of this part is this way. Okay? If I'd have printed it standing up, the grain would have been this way, which would have made it inherently unstable. It would have made it inherently not strong. Building it laying down flat like that on the build plate makes this considerably stronger, because this is the direction of the build. If I'd have built it like this would have been the direction of the build, and I would have stuck that up there and it would have snapped right off. Just like Miss Daisy's cup holder. Excuse the funky camera angle. I'm still using my GoPro, and you know, not for nothing, I'm not super crazy about it. First thing I gotta do is move this, because I'm not fighting with that label. So, these fit pretty much perfectly. They're a little tight, which is what I wanted. Okay? It is a little tight. But if you've ever tried to do this, and this is one of those voices of experience, right? So I very carefully marked these out. This is about 7/8 of an inch in. Full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of using your measuring tools for measuring. And this isn't a critical, it is critical, but it's not critical. Well, I know that this thing is 7/8 of an inch wide. It should be an inch, but you know, it's not a sterret, right? So I just slammed that up there to make sure I had a nice straight line, or a nice square line. I actually did move it over an inch. So it's nice and square here. And then I measured up to there. I measured an inch up from here to there. That's all square, and it's all well and good, right? But experience has told me, or taught me, especially when doing projects like this, that you're better off running your to make sure everything actually is nice and square and lined up and level and everything. You're better off doing it this way. Because I do want to be able to take this rod out, okay? And if this thing is cocked even just a little bit, you're not getting that rod out. Or really, you're not getting the rod in. So I'm going to take my shitty little level here and throw it on here. It should be relatively level. Well, it's actually off by a good bit. Very intradasting. We're off by a considerable amount. Our measurements are off. And it's not from my measuring, it's that for whatever, this board isn't level. So I measured it. So this is the point. I measured it. The board was as level this way, plumb, but it's not level. So I measured off the bottom of the board, and I doubt it's going to show up on camera, but that's because for the sake of argument, the crown molding in here is not level. Nothing in this building is level. I've had that debate multiple different times with multiple different people who have come in here and tried to help me do things. And when I try to explain to them that, yes, I understand that things are not level, but what they are is straight. No. That line is square to that, so we're good. And I'm a dickhead, and I put my fucking wrench down. Son of a bitch. Oh, it's nowhere near here. God damn it. Something that also needs to be noted is, and if you're not familiar with it, Phillips head screws come in different sizes. Well, if you try to run these in with a number 2, you're going to screw up the head. So I have a number 3 drill bit, number 3 here. Now we're going to go back to what we were doing, which is leveling this out, squaring it up, and we're going to run this one in. I didn't need that level anyway. Oh, and then the other thing is y'all missed me running the drill bit through my hand. I discussed yesterday with this dowel that these are not round. So close is good enough. And that's fucking good enough too. God damn it. Not only are they not round, they're not straight. Because over here, this level's too short. This is a shit level, I know it. So it's level here, but it's not level. Oh, and there you go. It's level there too. Hey, imagine that. If you're also not familiar with levels, it takes a second or two for them to, especially if you abuse them like I do. It takes a minute or two for them to even out. Now I'm not going to drill, I'm not going to sink these in any further than I have to. I actually, when I printed these, I countersunk the holes too. So here we go. That's exactly what I wanted, and I'm kind of, honestly, I'm just going to leave it exactly like this. I'm not going to fix this. I'm not fixing this rod in here. If I was going to fix the rod, I would just put one single grub screw in here. If you're in the UK, if you're in the United States, it would be an Allen grub screw. It would be a grub screw. I would drill and tap that into here, but I'm not going to bother because I don't need it. This is never going to be an issue. That sticker on the end of there is more of an issue than anything else. That's another thing is I'm not going to trim this anymore. This is going to stay exactly the way it is. So there's plenty of oopsie room. And then, you know, if I have to fight off zombies, I can always pull that out and use it to whack zombies in the head with. And then I got to figure out how to get this thing off. All right, next project. Well, here we are. I know that doesn't look like a lot, but yeah, quite frankly, it is. You know, it's a massive step forward. Oh, I missed a spot. Damn it. Fucking painters. The first coat anyway, I'm gonna have to put more on. Doesn't matter. So everything it is everything I wanted it to do. You know, it is what it is. It's a place for me to hang my vacuum attachments or hang anything else. That's right this minute. That's where the vacuum attachments are going to go. Now, what is the most hilarious part about this entire project? Other than the fact that I wasted 9 hours printing these out, $25 on this pole that I chopped up into little pieces, $35 for a quarter sheet of plywood. And before you bust my balls, I'm getting old and fat, and quite frankly, I can't carry a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood by myself anymore. I don't have any friends, so I got to do shit on my own. So I got to buy quarter sheets. That, and I end up with like half of a sheet of plywood laying around I got nothing to do with. So I pay the price. Now, the most hilarious part of this, well, there's two really fantastically hilarious parts to this project. First of all, I can't put all my vacuum attachments on here because I don't have enough holes. And secondly, and this is the absolute funniest part, when I originally spec'd this whole thing out, I spec'd it out to use this black plastic shit. I don't know what it was. I was going to 3D print it, right? And this fits perfectly. They don't fit. Now, the flip side of that is that these don't fit anyway. These attachments don't fit any of my vacuum cleaners, so all of these are eventually going to have 2.5-inch adapters put on them, very similar to this one. But when I went to go stick this on and it fell off, I was just like, this is the most hilarious thing ever, and my detractors are going to love it. Now, there is an option too for this project, I spaced these pretty far apart, so the next option is I could go, I'm out of 1x3s. I don't necessarily need to use 1x3, but I could take another piece. I still have some of this material, and I could just make another one of these, reset the drill press up, and make it so these little ones will fit on there too, and then just have a second row